everybody! How are you? Welcome back. This week has been a non-sewing week. Not got to the studio at all. Mostly because I went on a lovely holiday instead. Hurrah! But it means that I've not done any sewing. So what I thought I would do is instead show you a useful little hand stitch that I use all the time to repair things. I have on this lovely Zara jumper, which I have had for at least 10 years. I mean, it's just one of those things that seems to last forever. Or so I thought, till I was wearing it out for dinner, did a nice big stretch, and someone said to me, "Do you realise that you've got an enormous gaping hole in it?" You can see that. Yeah, massive hole where the seam has popped. And this can happen in quite a lot of different garments. Happens quite a lot in knits, has to be said, I think, because they get stretched a lot. So what I thought I'd show you is how you can sew this up by hand, which is really quick and allows you to have a nice flat seam, even if you can't get to the inside of the garment. So you couldn't sew it up on a sewing machine because you can't get the seam flat again to be able to put it under your machine foot, or you can't get to the inside in order to sew it in any other way. This is a really useful stitch to be able to do it from the outside of a garment, and I've used it a lot in ready to wear if I've done things and I've had popped seams. The only thing I would say is that it is not the strongest stitch unless you do very, very close together stitches. In the example I show you, I do them very far apart, but it's mostly so you can see how it works as opposed to that's how I'd naturally do it. I'd probably put them closer together. But I hope that you can still see the gist of it. I call it ladder stitch. I think that's what it's called. It might have other names. I hope this is helpful and you enjoy it. So if you imagine that these two pieces of fabric are part of a sewn seam, basically like a seam that's been stitched up, but you've got a piece of thread that's unravelled and you've got a gap in the middle. This is a really useful stitch. And essentially it creates a completely flat seam across a small area. So let me just show you what you do. So essentially, have your needle and come up at the back of your work so the needle comes through on the very edge of your fabric. My thread is on this bottom piece, as you can see it coming out from this top edge of it. You can see that. And all you do is essentially you create a ladder. So you take your thread. I'm going to just separate these out so you can see what I'm doing, and then I will close them up again so you can see what the finished stitch looks like. But you go straight across and you do a little horizontal stitch directly along the line of the seam. So this stitch is actually on this front edge, almost as if you're running it basically straight along this fold. And the idea is that you do put it as close to that fold as you can. Pull that through. And you'll see that you start to get this. You've got a flat stitch coming across like that. You then go back to the other side and and you have to make sure your stitches are level, but you go in level with where you just finished. And again, put a little stitch into that bottom one. Pull that through. I'm leaving this really loose so you can see what the formulation of the stitch is, otherwise it won't make much sense to you. So now we've got two strands spanning this distance. Go back and do another one. So the reason it's called ladder stitch is because you're basically creating the rungs of the ladder and using your two bits of fabric like the uprights. There you go. Hopefully you can see that that is creating this nice sort of ladder effect. So the important things are that you keep your stitches level, so you want nice straight rungs, you don't want them going up at an angle, and that you keep it as on the actual fold of your fabric as you possibly can, because that's what will keep it invisible. Now if I pull this back together again and just see if I can pull this through, so this pulls tight, what you will see is that this just creates a really flat seam where you can hardly see the stitches. I'm doing this in green thread, so you would be able to see it, but you'd obviously use a matching one. Let me just carry on and show you what happens. Now, appreciate that I have done this relatively quickly. So what you can hopefully see is that down the middle of that, although these stitches you can just see them because I've done them in a contrasting thread so specifically so you can. Imagine if that was in the same colour and you were doing it slowly, you can hardly see that join, and it just means that you end up with a seam line that's exactly where your original was and you don't have to keep worrying about going back in and changing your seam line using a machine. So there you go, ladder stitch, friggin' brilliant. And just to prove that it works, I have just sewn up the hole in this jumper, which took me approximately 4 minutes, so it's very quick. And you can see it has completely gone. And it's a nice flat seam. Just put this here so you can see it. Sorry, you're seeing a close-up of my underarm, but you know why. There you go, it's just there. But, you know, from any kind of distance, you wouldn't be able to tell. So, hope that was useful, hope you enjoyed it. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.